Hi there, my name is Wayne Hedlund with Wayne Hedlund Consulting. In this video, we are going to tackle the approvals feature in Asana. So this is actually a great feature and a great tool that a lot of organizations can use to help streamline some of the work that they have. However, I also noticed when I work with various organizations that a lot of times people don't understand how to use it, or they don't use it, or they get frustrated with it. So in this video, I hope to address some of the common challenges associated with the approvals task or the approvals feature in Asana. And hopefully, by the time we're finished, you're going to feel empowered to utilize this tool to help your team effectively get things done better. Now, there are many different reasons or ways that we might utilize approvals within our Asana project management workspace environment. So I just have this long list that I pulled together. We've got event sponsorships, or a vehicle purchase approval, or social media post, building renovation, customer refund approval, PTO approval, machinery repair approval, website update. We could just kind of go on and on and on. There's all kinds of options and ways that we really need to get approval from someone. And generally speaking, when we're looking for approval, we're looking for a couple of things. Usually we're looking for, and I'm just kind of start here at the very top right here. We'll just kind of create a new line with an approval. Usually we're looking for either for it to be approved, right? That means, hey, go for it. We're good to go. Sometimes it's rejected, right? And when it's rejected, nope, back to the drawing board. We need to start over. And then sometimes we want to approve it, but there are changes that we have requested first, right? So these are the options that, generally speaking, for the vast majority of these, it's either going to be approved, change requested, or rejected, or it may just be approved or rejected. With that in mind, let's dive into how Asana utilizes the approval feature, understand how it works, and then we're going to look at several ways that I've created to be able to pull off approvals. I'm going to call them primary task approvals, subtask based approvals, and then basically agile flow approvals, or you see PT, these means part-time. It means the approval task is an approval part-time. It's not an approval all the time, and we'll see how that works. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started and look at what we were going to call a once and done approval. Now, one of the things that you need to understand about an approval is that it's going to look and act differently than a normal task. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and create a new section here temporarily. We'll call this a reference section, and we're going to basically say we've got a regular task, right? We have a milestone task, that's an option, and we have an approval task. Now, a milestone task is going to look slightly different than our regular task. It's going to have this little green item here, and then the approval task is going to look even more different. So when we look at a regular task, we have the option up here to just mark it as complete. That's a no-brainer. That's the vast majority of tasks that we have in our project management space. Then we have a milestone task, and I talk about milestones in other videos, but a milestone is going to be a little bit different. It looks a little different, but again, we just mark it as complete when that milestone has come and gone. But now when we look at an approval task, you'll see that instead of a completed button, Asana has actually generated 3 buttons for us: the approve buttons, the request change button, or the reject button. One of the things that's really important for everyone to understand in the Asana workspace is when we select one of these 3 options, we are also marking that task as complete. And this sometimes creates confusion for people who are using this. Just like when in the milestone or in the regular task, when we selected one of those buttons, we mark the task as complete. So in this scenario here, if I mark this task as approved, I am in essence marking it as complete, and you can see it's grayed out over here. Similarly, if I had a filter turned on, for instance, that was just showing incomplete tasks, then when I mark that task as complete, when I mark it as approved or rejected, it's going to disappear because, again, Asana sees it as a complete task. Now, don't worry about that because there are some things that we can do depending on the kind of approval that you're trying to facilitate. We'll be able to tackle that in a way that still works for you. All right, so let's go ahead and remove these and this section. And let's talk about what I'm going to call a once and done approval. So a once and done approval is when we have an approval task that basically we're going to mark it as complete and it's done. We really touch the task one time, other than leading up to the task. Perhaps we have comments back and forth, or we do attachments or communications, or just, the description about what we're doing. But at the end of the day, we're going to just mark that as either approved or not. So in this particular case, let's say there is a legal document that we need to review. It's already been signed, and we're basically going through the process of uploading it, making sure it's the signature is valid, and going through all these steps. And so we get finally to the very end, and we're saying now somebody is going to need to approve that task. They're going to do a once and done. They're either going to say it's approved or it's not approved. And maybe there's something wrong with that legal document. It's got some terms in it that you don't like. You're just going to reject it, and we're done. We're wiping it clean. And because it was rejected, Asana created a nice big red, comment here at the bottom. Any of the collaborators who are part of this would have received a notification. And so theoretically, the people who are, have buy-in for this particular activity, in this case, a legal document, will know, hey, I need to go back to the drawing board. We need to start the process over again. Similarly, we have a vendor that we're trying to onboard, and we go through the process of vetting that vendor and determining whether or not they have the information that we want. They're going to be able to be what we're looking for in a vendor, right? And so now it's going to a director or supervisor or whoever is in charge, and it's going to be a once and done. They approve it, and we move on. Okay, so once and done is pretty simple, it's pretty basic, and it's very effective for when we don't need to go back and forth with that approval. If, for instance, we wanted to have a conversation and we wanted to reboot on that particular task, then the once and done approach wouldn't really work very well. All right, so we have the once and done approval. Next up, we have the once and again approval. And you say, well, what in the world is a once and again approval? So let's just say, for instance, that we're going to do an event space walkthrough to kind of determine if, let's say, a venue is going to be appropriate for an upcoming event that we are hosting. And so let's just, for the sake of time, say that we've already accomplished all of these tasks and they have been marked as done. And so now that venue, whatever the venue is going to be presented to someone who's in charge. In this case, my good friend Edna, right? And so Edna is looking at all of the information that's been collected by that vendor. But this task is still going to be utilized and it's going to be done. But what we've done here is we've also created some rules to run, and done that right over here in the customize section. We have 2 rules that are running so that when that task is marked as, in this case, either change requested, rejected, or approved, what will Asana do? Asana is going to go ahead and create some more tasks. So let's just kind of watch and see what happens. So Edna is looking at the proposal for the venue. She comes in and says, actually, I am not sure. Let's just say this time she rejects it. Okay, she's not interested in that venue. It's too far away, or there's some other reason. And you'll see that right away what Asana has done is created another task, assigned it to Jessie, who is in charge of this event, is given her a few days to process it, but basically it's a once and again. In other words, this task was marked as done, but a new task was created for someone. Let's go ahead and delete that task and reset. And let's say instead of rejecting it, let's ask for changes. Let's say that Edna has more information she wants to know about that venue before she makes a decision. In that scenario, we're seeing that a couple of tasks are created. So first of all, Jessie's going to follow up on the concerns that Edna has brought up. And incidentally, I haven't mentioned this, but the best practice, it's actually quite important, is depending on the kind of approval we're doing, whenever we change request, or sometimes even when we reject or approve, it's just common courtesy to obviously notify the stakeholders who are involved in that activity. And the best place and way to do that is in the comment. So if for some reason Edna is going to ask for changes, the ideal would be that she would come down into the comment, in this particular case, right within inside the approval task, and she's going to mention the person that's most important. In this case, we're going to say it's Jesse, and just say, please find out more about the amenities that are offered, right? So she's just asking for further work to be done. We always mention that's one of the best practices of communication in Asana, and now it's done. So Jesse's going to get a notification, but she also got that follow-up right here assigned to her to follow up and see and find out about those amenities or whatever it was that Edna had. So when Jesse marks that as done, of course, we have also another task that was created automatically by Asana. This is the once and again, so we have another approval that's come up. Because it wasn't fully approved, Asana created another approval task, assigned it to Edna a few days after Jessie was supposed to do her job. And let's say Edna wants to do that again. She still has more questions. She would go in and create a comment and let Jessie know, I still have more questions. Maybe the cost wasn't clear. And so now we have it again where another task is created for Jessie and another approval was created for Edna. Finally, Edna's able to say, approved, we're good to go. Let's go ahead and move on. In that scenario, one last task is created for Jesse to go ahead and send the event approval and keep things rolling, right? So in other words, we're creating a workflow specifically for that that project or that activity, but we're using the once and again approval, which means we're using rules to create more tasks. Here's another scenario, again, very similar, and unfortunately, I'm not even going to try to get into this, but we have, for instance, in fact, just for fun, let's go ahead because I forgot to reset this, but let's say we have a compliance issue that needs to be addressed for a building inspection. So verify the compliance with the electrical code. So they already went through and everything, and we're going to request changes. In this scenario, because we requested changes, someone's going to go back and have to do more work. And so in this case, you'll see that several tasks were created to kind of restart the entire process. Because the electrical inspection was not approved, we're going to have to find out what was non-compliant. We're going to schedule another time for the electrician to come in and fix it, upload photos, attach the inspection, and then let's go ahead and verify it one more time and see if this time we get it done right. Eventually we do, and now we're able to move on. And in that particular scenario, even though we verified it, we could still create another task if we wanted to give things for people to, something for people to do. In this case, I haven't set the rule properly, so it literally recreated all those tasks, which is not what I was looking for. All right, so we have done the once and a done, and we've done the once and again approval. So these are two different kinds of approvals that focus on the primary task or the task that at the parent level instead of a subtask. So let's now dive into subtasks with approval. I'm going to call this the one-up approval. What is the one-up approval? So in this scenario, we'll just use a use case of, let's say, web design mockups. In this scenario, we'll see that we have a series of tasks that are associated with a deliverable, in essence, front page mockup, right? So in this scenario, you'll see that the main task is the most important one. This is where we're having our communication back and forth. This is where we have attachments. You'll notice here that at some point in time, someone attached a mock-up for the front page of the website so it can be reviewed by the various people. So there's a lot of information and conversation that's going on inside this parent task. So in the one-up approval, what we're seeing is a series of tasks inside that tasks, basically subtasks, that are going to walk through the workflow that needs to be walked through. So in this scenario, we can see that it's time. We've created the initial wireframe. We've uploaded the draft of that. Now, we didn't upload the draft to the subtask. That would be confusing. We uploaded the draft to the parent task right here again. it's going to be right here. And so now we have the next task, which is review layout and design elements. So it's been given to Joy, and Joy is responsible for reviewing that. So in the one-up approval, the key is that whoever is doing the approving needs to understand that the data or the information or what they're approving is not going to be attached inside this task. I mean, it could be somewhere else. It could be on some kind of cloud drive, or it could be something physical that needs to be approved. But in the case of where it might be attached to the file, Joy just understands, because it's the best practice and the standard operating procedure that they have set up, that if she wants to review the layout and design, she's going to go up one. Okay, she's going to pop up to the front page mockup, and she can do that while she's inside the approval task by just navigating up. You see right here, we see this is the name of the task, and then we have the parent task right here. If for some reason there are several layers, we'll be able to navigate through those layers as well. So she comes up here, she looks at the mockup, and incidentally, while I'm here, might as well mention as well, when you're giving feedback on PDFs or images inside of Asana, you also can use the feedback feature. So in this case, she might scroll in and she can click on this add feedback button and then click anywhere on the PDF or image. In this case, she might click here and say, select a different image. And she's actually going to obviously give a due date for that. But when she does that, she can create a new task. You'll see it puts a number 1 there. And she might even come down here and say, use Fred's pick here. And she's going to obviously give it a due date. It's our best practice, and create a task. And a number 2 is created there. So this is all happening inside of Asana. What's cool about this feedback feature is I can see those 2 numbers, but Asana has also created 2 subtasks assigned to the appropriate people so that they know that something else needs to be done for that front page mockup. Great feature if it's used well. And helps to kind of keep everything in one place, and helps to kind of manage the edits and things that need to happen. And so all of that took place while Joy was reviewing the layout and the design elements. Let's say that she has gone through that process and she's happy. She's going to go ahead and mark that as approved, and the next person up, in this case my friend Fred, is going to continue to walk through the workflow. There's no automations that happens here. Because we have accomplished what we needed to accomplish. When we get to the next approval, we'll go through the same process until we have completed everything associated with that task. This is called the one-up approval, where the approval task is living as a subtask inside the parent task. All right, let's go through the next one, the one down approval. Well, we had the one up approval. What is a one down approval? You'll notice here I've got a permit that needs to be approved, and let's say that we've already gone through the tasks associated with at least getting started to approve that permit in this scenario. And now you'll see my approval task here. In this particular scenario, we're actually using a couple of rules to accomplish a couple of things. So Fred is looking at the permit wherever it is. Maybe it's up on some kind of cloud drive, and he's looking at that information, the application, and he has questions. So he's going to come in here and he's going to say changes requested. Now, with one of the other options, when he created that changes requested, it would have created a brand new task. But sometimes we don't want to create a brand new task. Maybe Fred wants to come in here and add some information. Maybe he says, he comes in, he mentions Joy and has several questions, question 1, 2, and 3, right? So there's several questions that he wants to have, and he wants to comment on them, maybe even attach something. And so he doesn't want this task to go away when it's marked as done. So in this scenario, we're using the one down approval. And what we're going to do before I even do it, I'm going to tell you what we did, is we set it up so that when we mark it as change requested in particular or rejected, Asana is going to do a couple of things. First, Asana is going to create a subtask assigned to somebody to have them follow up on that requested change for the approval. But the second thing that we're going to actually ask Asana to do is also change the status of the task to incomplete. In other words, we're going to turn that completed approval task back into an incomplete approval task. Why? Because it's not complete. There's more work that needs to be done. Let's go ahead and do it, and you'll see what I mean. So let's go ahead and say change requested. Let's wait a moment. We can see a rule is happening down in the bottom left. And now we see a new task has been created, assigned to Jesse to revise the permit application based on the feedback that was given by Fred, right? So Fred gave feedback. He gave it to Joy, but he should have given it to Jesse. And so Jesse's going to come in here and she's going to revise that information. And once she does, she might create, set up a comment in here that says, hey, Fred, we're ready. Ready for review. So she might just kind of let him know that that is ready for him to review, and then he can go back and do it again, right? So what we did though is you'll see that when we marked it as request changes, it disappeared, or it kind of showed up as completed there, and then it reappeared as incomplete. And that again is because we used a rule to kind of reverse that. Now, you may have noticed down here that I have created a special comment as part of that basically said revisions are needed. And the reason for that is this: when we tell Asana to mark an approval task as incomplete after it has been marked as complete, we lose kind of Asana's comment feature that kind of blares at us, hey, this has been approved, or hey, this is not approved. For instance, if I come in here and approve this task, we can kind of wait for a moment. We've got nice big letters here that says this task was approved. Great, no problem. But if I come in and said, this task requested changes, it's going to show me that requested changes initially, but then it went away. Why? Because Asana turned the task as back into an incomplete task. So in that scenario, I just create for myself, or for whoever I'm working with, my own notification that just says, hey, by the way, some revisions were needed, and also creates a history there so that we can see it. Now, technically, we can still see that information in the all activity section here with Asana, but usually it's not super visible. So I like to just kind of add that extra flair just to make sure people understand. So this is the one down approval, where we basically keep that approval active and live until it has finally been approved. And then at that point in time, we're good to go and we can move on, right? And so that is the one down approval. All right, we're continuing on. Once and done, the once and again, the one up, the one down. Finally, we're going to look at these part-time approvals. You say a part-time approval, why? Because we're going to use an agile flow, and it's very similar. Each one is a little bit unique, but they're very similar, where the task is at one point or another will turn into an approval task, but then it will turn back into a regular task. So let's walk through that. So first of all, we have a sections approval. In this particular case, let's say that we have an inbox that's associated with a form, and whenever someone fills out the form, a new request comes in this case for some kind of promotion. I can see all of the information that came in from the form here. We're ready to rock and roll with this. We have all the information we need. We start commenting back and forth. We start attaching different versions or proposals for that promotion, and we're eventually ready to kind of get rolling. So this is the agile approach, or using the Kanban or the board view. And so what we're calling it the sections approval, because we're basically dragging and dropping it from one section to another. Now, I don't really talk about this, but you can also use, of course, the custom field feature to do the exact same thing. So instead of using Asana's section view, we can use a custom field to simulate the same kind of thing. Now, you may or may not have seen, but the task actually was automatically assigned to Donald once it moved to in progress. So I'll take this getting things done webinar, we'll move it into in progress, and I actually told Asana to go ahead and reassign that to the person who is in charge. Okay, and we can do that based on all kinds of things, whether it's an email or what kind of category of work it is, etc. In this case, what we're talking about is approvals. So now my good friend Donald does the work he needs to do. He attaches whatever files he needs to attach for this particular promotion to get approved, and then he's going to drag and drop it into review. When he does, when I let go of this task, you will notice that Asana is going to first turn it into an approval task using rules and assign it to the person who's in charge of approving it and giving them a deadline, right? So we changed the assignee, we changed the deadline, and we turned it into an approvals task. In this case, let's say that my friend Edna, she's like, nope, go back to the drawing board. We have some more work to do. And so we could have even just put that into a revision vertical or section. Well, in this case, I just told Asana to throw it right back into the in progress, right? So now we're going to drag and drop these both over here. And in this particular case, maybe we'll mark them as approved, right? So they're both, happy with what happened there, and Asana automatically moved them into the approved vertical here and assigned it to the person who was supposed to, take care of it. That person's going to go ahead and do that and mark them as complete, and then they're going to go to the complete phase, right? So this is what we're calling the part-time approval using the sections method. Then we have a very similar workflow that's going to be the part-time approval, but we're calling it the completed approval. So in this case, we're using, again, a form that's bringing in information for various people who are asking for time off. It's a time off request form or a PTO request form that they fill out. It automatically pops into this board. And so Jesse's job, when they come in, it automatically gets assigned to her. And her job is just to make sure that the people, in this case, Wayne or Edna or Joy, her job is just to make sure that they actually have the PTO available and that it's not going to conflict with other things that are happening, right, in the organization. So she's going to complete it, right? Saying, wait a second, it's not complete. Well, that's why we're using rules or automation. She's going to mark these as complete. Each and every one of these are good to go. So she can say, yep, we're fine. There's no conflicts here that I see. And so we're going to move it now. And it's automatically moved into the department head approval. I have another workflow for another company I did where it actually went through 2 different approvals. It went through a department head approval, but it also needed to go into the HR director's approval, right? So in this case, it's going to be a department head. And of course, we could create rules so that it's a different department head. I didn't do that. It could be a different person for finance department or human resource. In this case, I just assigned them all to my friend Edna. So if Edna decides to come in here and reject these tasks or that particular PTO, it's going to pop right over here to denied. And of course, if she approves it, it's going to pop over to approved. Pretty self-explanatory. Nothing there super important. One thing that I did do was that if for one reason or another it was rejected, then I'm going to make sure that the person who asked for that PTO was notified, right? So your request was denied, get back to work, right? So, and we can do the same thing if it was approved. As well, notifying them that their PTO was approved. So this is very similar to the other flow where we're doing the sections, but this is the completed approval. And then finally, we have the final method or way we can approach approvals, and that is going to be through what I'm going to call the subtask completed approval. And this is, again, using rules and automations to be able to get things done. So in this case, what we're actually doing is we're creating the workflow that's associated with, in this case, our blog posts by using automation in Asana that's basically saying when a task is marked as complete, go ahead and create the next subtask associated with that flow of work. Okay, so in this particular case, I can see that drafting the blog is something that needs to happen. It's the first stage in the blog process, and this is the title of the blog in this particular scenario. And so I've gone ahead and done the things I needed to do. I have a couple questions that have gone back and forth, and now we're going to mark that task as complete. That was a subtask. As soon as I marked the subtask as complete, Asana went ahead and created a new subtask called Edit and Proofread. We're also using the blog stage custom field over here, and you'll see why here in a moment. And so now someone's going to come in here and they're editing it, and they're proofreading the blog, and they're going to mark it as done. And now that it's done, it needs to be approved, right? So it needs to be approved. In this case, what we did was we created a new task, subtask that said, hey, approve the blog post. But we actually converted the name of the task into an approval right here. So when I mark this as done, nothing happens. what needs to happen here is we're going to either request changes, reject it, or approve it. So let's go ahead and request changes. In that scenario, Asana is going to create a new subtask that says, hey, we had some changes that needed to happen. It's going to assign to appropriate person. It's going to give us a little bit of time to work on it. We're in the revision stage right now. Once we've incorporated those feedback and we've done what we wanted to for that blog, we're going to go back through the process of approving it again. In this case, we're going to go ahead and approve it. We'll say, hey, we finished that up. We approved it. Now it can finalize the final steps. We're going to optimize it for SEO. We're going to publish it. And then once we mark that task as published right down here, then Asana is going to automatically mark the task as complete. So this is using a particular kind of rule in Asana. I wanted to show it to you because it's the method that I like to use for some of my clients using the approval process, where we actually turn the parent task or the main task into an approval. It makes it a lot easier for the managers or the various people who are trying to approve. They don't have to use the one-up method. They can just stay right where they want to when they're in my tasks and see that task. Everything is right in here. Very quick and simple for them to be able to process. Okay, so with that in mind, perhaps there are other ways and methods that we can use approvals in Asana. That said, I'm pretty happy with the options that I've given to you. These are the ones that I've either built for various organizations or that I see them using. Hopefully one or more of you, as you watch this, I know pretty lengthy video, will find one or more of these helpful and useful, and that you really empower you to get the things done you want to get done within Asana. I'll just kind of close by saying, if at any given time you would like help in creating one of these workflows or anything else in Asana, don't hesitate to reach out to me, WayneHedlund.com. I'd love to start a conversation. Thanks so much for watching. Have a fabulous day. Bye now.